Good afternoon, classmates. Here are 11 interesting additions that would not take an entire seasonal strut. Well, one or two could take it. One or two could be implemented as a seasonal mechanic, but the most of them are something that is simple to add that I think would improve the overall gameplay experience and world building for people playing Diablo 4 running around the game world. And God knows right now we need something that's a little bit more meat on the bones in the game. For God's sakes, if I have to run the spider cavern one more time, I'm gonna fucking lose it. A first addition could be let the entrances to cellars look different when it's a unique one, such as when a cellar could spawn as goblins, make the entrance to the cellar maybe have a few coins on the ground, or have gold around it, or have a golden hue to it. Another example could be maybe a hell rift opened up in the cellar so the entrance has fiery cracked ground around it. This would look cool, and it would incentivize players to quickly detour for a few seconds when they pass a cellar to quickly just check the entrance, give it a quick side eye, like, oh, is there something there? No, okay. Nothing taken away from the player if nothing is there, but a welcome and dopamine filled response if they do check it and it's glowing. A second addition could be a very low chance for the butcher to literally rip you off your horse, force you into a 1v1 in the open world, and the reward could be a double or even a triple resplendent. I think that'd be fun, it'd be lively, and I think it'd be immersive. We already have the butcher as he is now, where he randomly jumps you as you walk into rooms and dungeons. Sometimes you can actually see him ahead of time just sitting there hyperventilating, just getting all giddy waiting for you to walk through that doorway. Meanwhile, you're just literally looking through the doorway at him. He has no idea you're there. Sometimes that's fun. It's a crazy, like, here's a mini boss fight, even though I would imagine for most builds, unless you are completely overly statted out, you can't fight the guy, so you have to run away. At least, on my Death Knight Rogue, I can't do that. I literally have to find a pillar and then abuse his AI to get him to run around. Other times you're annoyed because you just want to get the Nightmare Dungeon done, and you will willingly die just to get him off the map. I've done that a few times. Number 3, allow a full charge horse sprint, and Asmongold said this, to just smash straight through barricades in the world. It would simply just feel good, it would remove an annoyance in the game world that people don't like, and it would make the game feel more immersive. Or better yet, have the horse, while it's in a gallop, maybe not smash through it, have it jump over it. And heck, maybe have your horse also just run over like skeletons and small fallen imps and just kill them instantaneously. Now, killing them this way wouldn't drop loot, so I think that'd be fair, but just have them do it. Just roadkill things as you run through the field. That feels pretty damn Diablo 4 to me, and I would personally love it. Number 4, I thought about this one for a bit. How about a new event where a town is about to get raided? So the entrances to the town are blocked off, and players inside and players who can port inside the town during it have to split up, cover the different entrances to keep the invaders from breaking in and slaughtering people. It's like a hold your ground type event, but one that players might actually get into and want to do because they're defending something that they care more about than a random broken down cart on the side of the road. Yeah, people are still doing trade routes out in this demonic infested world in this game. They're defending the player towns. And while you're at it, have a couple other player towns have as many vendors as Kyovashad. That way, if Kyovashad's getting raided, well, the main central hub that has literally every vendor in the game is not now locked down by an event. They can just go to another town. Number 5, this one's really simple. They haven't done it before, but they fucking should. Just give us a separate action slot for ultimates. Nerf all the ultimates, or nerf the legendary effects for the ultimates if you have to, for balance purposes. But every class should be able to have a button for the fantasy and immersion experience. Number 6, put a boss between level 70 and Uber Lilith that rewards one unique item of the player's choice that isn't one of the super rare ones like Shaco or Grandfather. Or that reward could be upgrade a piece of gear to a 6th level, something to reward players for continuing to grind up the same dungeon over and over and over and over and over, because realistically that's what most of us are doing, and something to help them feel a boost in power on the way to fighting their inner demon. And no, not the self-deprecation voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. Literally, the embodiment of Lilith festering in our loins. Why the loins? Ask her that yourself. But I have been hearing that it is a good possibility that they are in fact putting in more pinnacle bosses anyway, so good. Until they do that, it's on this list. Number 7, more unique mount flares. Every boss in the game, like the ones from the story, should be replayable and have a chance to drop a noticeable flare that you can put on your horse. We have some of them, like I think there's a fallen chieftain horn you can put on your horse, but it's kind of minuscule and it's not that noticeable. For a real interesting idea for a flare, how about a flare where it's a small imp tied to a rope being dragged behind your horse as you ride? Like, I think Diablo 4 can afford to put that subtle enough level of comedy into the game and not have it take away from the overall experience. We're also constantly on our horse, so let's make it fun to mount around and at the same time fix the atrocious harshest mount riding mechanic. Number 8, weapon effects as pinnacle rewards. I, begrudgingly during it, but will feel great after it, redo Renown every season if there's a new cosmetic weapon effect or armor effect. It's lore friendly, it doesn't have to be crazy and wacky. Hell, even better, have it do a small effect for one ability of each class. Flurry for rogues, Great Hammer Slam for barbarians. It seems like a lot of work, but this would be a pinnacle reward. So it would be something that players would actually get into the season and actually do the season pass for, or grind all the way up to level 100 for. I'm not talking Path of Exile levels of cosmetics. No, Path of Exile warps reality and dimensions with some of the cosmetics they put into their store. No, not that. Number 9, put elemental damage on weapons starting from World Tier 3, only on Sacred and Ancestral gear, and make it very rare. Not as rare as the World Tier 4 uniques, because nobody has the mental fortitude for that. Seriously. And I'm a monk. I'm supposed to, and I don't. Not for that. On the same note, put legendary effects that, like the Rogue's Imbuement legendaries, combo with each other. Rogues have legendaries that state hitting chilled enemies with Shadow Imbuement causes an explosion, and vice versa with combos with their Poison Imbuement. Elements on weapons can add a nice subtle visual to the weapon, maybe even to like the hover icon when it drops on the ground, like how Yellow's legendaries and uniques do already when you hover over the item on the ground. And it doesn't take away from the Rogue's ability to have an immediate on-demand elemental effect by allowing other classes like barbarians to have access to minor elemental effects on weapons. Or like in my cosmetic point, just add some elemental cosmetic effects to really give us a chance to feel like a Frost Death Knight from WoW, or maybe a Fire Crazed Barbarian. Now these last two, here's where the scope becomes something more of a seasonal edition. Number 10, how about a new worldwide event, but one where it's a huge treasure goblin or other mob that will reward players with a lot of loot, preferably gold I would say, that once engaged in the open world gives everybody on the map an alert, like I think world bosses do right now anyway. But what's the special thing about this, you ask? It's got maybe half the amount of health as world boss, or maybe even a third if that's still too much, and it immediately follows a singular set path running from the outskirts of one town to the outskirts of another town to the outskirts of another town to the outskirts of another town, and it just does that, not through the town because we can't use skills, but it does that for about 5 to 10 minutes while players run it down, being able to hit it at times when it stops near towns to rest, or random intervals where it tries to escape like the treasure goblins do anyway, until they stagger it, and then they have a chance to kill it. Once it's killed, it drops its sack of reward, which includes like a whole lot of gold since restack costs scale to insane amounts for a singular piece of gear. How about chances for legendaries and uniques and the like? Because, you know, we're all looking for more and more and more legendaries and stuff, because the legendaries themselves have an RNG scaling on the damn percentages on the gear anyway. And this would be something akin to a world boss. It could be something that starts in World Tier 3 or 4, almost as like a mini catch-up mechanic for people who are still trying to chase that Werewolf Tornado unique, or the Penitent Greaves unique, or trying to get another copy of them just to get the higher rolled one. It can also run on this singular path counterclockwise or clockwise, just to have it be a little bit of variety each time. You can have players chasing it, waiting for it to stop so it can get beat down, and then you can have players who are just sitting outside of town with their weapons drawn, getting ready for that goblin to just, you know, take a break right near town so they can just obliterate it right then and there. And lastly, this one could be another seasonal edition that could also be a core edition, which I still think would be really cool. Let's take a page out of the Shadow of Mordor system, where players have their own specific demon that hunts them. We have this already with the Butcher, where the Butcher just kind of like indiscriminately hunts everyone at the same time. But now you can personalize it for players. When they die to a demon randomly, or at the start of a season at random, a type of demon becomes a rival. Maybe it's just a fallen imp that can get like really beefed up, where you can squash its skull for a long time while it gets to that point where like now you actually have to try to fight it sincerely, like a mini boss. Or you can get very unlucky at the start of the season, and at level 4 your personal rival demon ends up being like a fucking oppressor. Now you're just occasionally being jumped in Act 1 by a goddamn oppressor. Though compared to the Butcher, that's still tame, so you'll be fine. The capstone for the season could also, instead of being a fight with like Elias or Uber Lilith, it could be a fight with like Uber, your personal demon. Just like a randomly generated name, maybe an affix that somehow specifically counters a main stat damage that you do on your character. Like if you're like on a rogue, if you do a lot of cold imbuement damage, maybe it's a character that is more unstoppable. If you do a lot of poison imbuement, maybe it ends up being a rival that has a crap load of health, so the poison doesn't work as much. It can also just be left up to player choice. You go to the capstone dungeon, it gives you the option. Do you want to just fight Elias or Uber Lilith, or do you want to fight the fallen imp that's been trying to clap your butt cheeks for the last 80 levels? And now he thinks he's got a chance. So yeah, that's my list of just short changes and additions I was just thinking of off the top of my head, ranging from, simple to like implement, to like maybe you need like a seasonal content to to actually put these kind of additions into the game. I think they can be permanent additions that will for sure make the game world feel more alive, intricate, and even dangerous to explore, kind of like how Path of Exile does. So tell me what you think about these. What other ideas can you personally think of that would be easy to implement and that you would just overall have fun running around the open world? Personally, for me, I really do want the number one point that I do want. I want the butcher to randomly spawn in the open world and just hook you off your horse, throw you into a bone prison with him that nobody else can get into, and then just beat your ass until one of you die. And that would be hilarious as you're riding behind your horse and you just see a butcher death match happening and you can't do anything but just sit outside the bone wall and just watch like a fight pit. How entertaining would that be? Almost every time. Hey, classmate, keep your voice down. Grandmaster doesn't like us talking during lesson. Do you think you could give me a like and a sub? Every bit helps, you have no idea. Grandmaster's coming this way. Act natural.